giving 3 first-round picks to the Dolphins. Now, the move is expected to result in a quarterback, putting Jimmy G's future in question. But Adam Schefter says the Niners have no plans on trading Jimmy G. I love my guy Adam Schefter, but I know this much. The 49ers are lying. Because it's not a matter of if Jimmy G is going to get moved from the Niners. It's only a matter of when. So now the real conversation that needs to be had is when should the 49ers move away from Jimmy G? I was doing some podcasting this weekend and I heard something. We often undermine future success for short-term success, meaning this. We think if we want to get ahead in the long term, we have to get ahead in the short term. If we want to play in the NFL, we got to put a football in our hands by the time we're 2 or 3 years of age. But that's not always the case, particularly in the National Football League. Let's talk about the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL last year. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. Say what you will, but any one of those 4 of the top 5 quarterbacks last year, they didn't start their first game in the NFL. Remember Aaron Rodgers, he sat for quite some time. Tom Brady, we all know his story. He sat for a while. Patrick Mahomes, he sat behind Alex Smith. Deshaun Watson, he wasn't even the starter slated to go into week 1. He replaced his starter at halftime. So we've actually now realized, based on looking at the greats in the current NFL, that if you want to have long-term success, don't be bamboozled. Don't be fooled, Niners. You don't necessarily need an imminent short-term rookie head start. So for me, when should Jimmy G be moved? No sooner than the trade deadline this year. Let Jimmy G groom whatever young quarterback you draft, San Francisco 49ers, and realize that long-term success does not directly correlate to short-term success. Long-term success, it stands alone. Don't be in a rush to move on from Jimmy G. I got to bring in my dude, Greg Jennings. I'm in a rush to hear from him. Greg, good to see you get dressed for the show today. But Bucky, you up first. When should the Niners move on from Jimmy G?
2022, this is a situation where Jimmy Garoppolo is going to serve as a bridge to the future for the 49ers. You have him. He's already in place. You know that you can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. You've won a ton of games with Jimmy Garoppolo. What you're doing now is resetting the clock on the future with a young quarterback coming in. And what better situation for a young quarterback than to come into one where you don't have the immediate pressure of having to play? Kyle Shanahan has said, like he and John Lynch have said, there's a plan in place for Jimmy Garoppolo. They know that they can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. They just also want to prepare for the future. So, Acho, I know you don't like insurance, but this is insurance for their future. They now have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and move on and hand the keys of the franchise to a new quarterback. We saw it happen in Kansas City. Alex Smith played at a high level, a Pro Bowl level, before they handed it to Patrick Mahomes, and they took off and actually played better with the new quarterback. This is the 49ers following that blueprint. They're just doing it with Jimmy G in mind.
I agree with you, Bucky. I don't know if it'll wait all the way to 2022. However, this is a bridge. This is an opportunity for the 49ers to have the best of both worlds, to get what they would look at as their future quarterback, and then to also have an individual who you know can provide you the success right now immediately. And that's what this is all about. Kyle Shanahan is not just about the short term. He's about both short term and long-term sustainable success. And that's John Lynch. That's their will or their desire when you look at this organization, how they've drafted so well. And so they're preparing. They understand that, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo is not a bad quarterback. When healthy, we saw what he was able to do and what he provided. He allowed us to get to the Super Bowl, but it wasn't solely on his shoulders. So with that, I say you might have an opportunity to entertain, to get your quarterback and to allow him to get some reps in this season upcoming, as well as learn from a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo of how this system works, what it looks like. Because so often I think quarterbacks are expected, especially when they're drafted top 5, to come in and to save a franchise and to turn it around. That's not at all the case for whatever quarterback that is drafted by the 49ers. Their expectation will be to continue the success that is going to be built and that they've already established, barring or with the exception of this past season because of injury. So they're in a win-win situation in 49er land?
I do think that the 49ers would have to really fight against the norm. They'd have to swim upstream, if you will. Greg, Bucky, I agree with y'all wholeheartedly that it's not a matter of starting whatever rookie quarterback the Niners draft right away. That would be dumb. But if you're the Niners, you've looked at places like the Eagles. They trade up to draft Carson Wentz. They start him right away. The Jets, in drafting Sam Darnold, they start him right away. But remember, I offered you all the positives of the top 5 quarterbacks last year and how none of them started right away. But then look at the quarterbacks who struggled the most last year. Sam Darnold, like I just mentioned, he had the worst passer rating in the entirety of the National Football League last year. Day 1 starter. Carson Wentz last year went from riches to rags, if you will. He was a day 1 starter. Now, I attribute their shortcomings last season to several different things. But I don't think it is a coincidence that the best quarterbacks in the National Football League were not thrust into action right away, and the quarterbacks who have struggled last year in the National Football League were thrust into action right away. Yes, there are outliers. Dak Prescott, outlier. Russell Wilson stole the job from Matt Flynn his rookie year back in 2012, outlier. But if you want to follow the trends of the norm, the 49ers aren't actually in a crazy rush to win right now, because being real, you probably not beating the Buccaneers next year anyway. They returning all 22 starters. So you might as well go ahead and bid your time. Don't undermine the progress of your young quarterback and see what happens in the future.
No. You're always in the business to win games, and they've proven that they can win games.
Yes, you are.
But there's a difference between being in the business to win and realistically having a greater chance. For example, Jimmy G, Bucky, he's not going to give the Niners a greater chance to win than the young quarterback they draft, at least not in their mind.
What? He's won 75% of his game. He took the 49ers a year ago to the Super Bowl, and now we're saying that he's not good enough for them to use him as a bridge starter? Come on, Acho. This is just about his business. Jimmy Garoppolo, we love you for